Hey guys, welcome back to First and 10 over here on Clueless Gamers. I'm your host, Pete, joined as always by my co-host, Brian. Guys, it's so good to be back with Brian. We're back another week here, First and 10. Sorry we missed last week. Just kind of schedules didn't work out, and there was some, as I was telling Brian before we started, some real life events I had going on that took major precedence. As much as I love you guys, that comes first. So apologize for missing last week, but we're back to kind of cover our missed week of week 11. We'll do week 12, and then if we have time, we'll do week 13 picks, or maybe we'll do a separate video for that, because guys, it is Thanksgiving week. If you could believe it or not only we're at this point of the NFL season, but we're at this point of 2025. I mean, just every year I feel like I say the same thing. Just the holiday season comes up on you so fast, it's insane. But with all that being said, Bri, I welcome you in. Welcome back. I did a solo episode the last time I had an episode here. Glad to have you back, man. It's not the same without you. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Looking forward to talking some football again, and Thanksgiving week is always a great week for football, and
Oh
of
yeah.
course, with the family get-togethers and all the great food. I mean, what could be better than the Thanksgiving holiday? And by the way, like this week, we got
Really
two
good
very
ones.
good games, I would say. Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
slate overall, I think, is really good. I mean, starting with the divisional matchup in Detroit, and you get the Cowboys taking on the Chiefs. That is all of a sudden a really
Oh, we'll talk
interesting
about
game with the
that.
Cowboys playing better, yeah, the last couple weeks. And then you end with Joe Burrow back in action for Cincinnati
Yep.
going into Baltimore, divisional matchup there, and the Ravens, they're on a winning streak, but how good are they? I don't really know that we know
Hmm.
right now. So I think you got three really interesting games for your Thanksgiving Thursday.
Yeah, really excited for that. And then, of course, I think this is the third straight year. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Black Friday game is Eagles Bears. That's another huge game. So there should be some
Yeah.
really exciting kind of standalone primetime style games even before we get to Sunday and Monday night, which will be jam packed. So that will take place for week 13. But before we all get to that, Brian, let's wind those clocks back just a bit. We're going to cover these real quick. Week 11, we're going to jump back to two marquee games because they are huge games for potentially not only what went on that week, but for the rest of the season and these division races. The first place I want to start, Bri, is the Seattle Seahawks go down to the Rams. They lose 21-19. Jason Myers has a chance at the end of the game, a 61-yard attempt. It goes wide right, and the Rams hold on to get a win in a game where the Rams defense played great, picked Darnold off 4 times, and yet this Rams offense struggled, could not get much going against the Seattle defense. Really, the only kind of moments they had were on the short fields that their defense provided me. But in the end, Bri, I could focus on all the negatives for that particular game. If I want to focus on the positives, I have to say that the team found ways to win that I feel like in past years where the Rams have been kind of, they're good. They're like that dangerous team right in the playoffs, but they're the 6th seed, they're the 5th seed, they're 10-7. This team feels different. This team feels like even when it's ugly, even when one side of the ball isn't playing up to par, they're able to find ways to win, and one side could pick up the other. And right now you have an offense and a defense, Bri, that rank both in the top 10 in scoring in the National Football League. What was your takeaway from the Seattle Rams matchup? Did you see it more as, Seattle, they probably should have won if they don't throw even one or two of those interceptions, and the Rams just didn't play that great? Or do you see it more as I do, of more like, hey, a gutsy win that the Rams kind of pulled out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably more on the side of the gutsy win for the Rams. But before, further analyzing that particular matchup, I was just listening to your summation there, and I'm kind of thinking you're starting to believe in this team, and it took you a little while to get there, but
Maybe.
well,
Maybe we'll
maybe
see.
not. I mean, right now, I think you have to say they're playing about as well as anybody,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know this game they didn't. Really didn't do much of anything offensively. Their most recent game, they just went off. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just a blitzing of the Bucks. But that's another story. But this game, I think that is the word, like gutsy. It's a divisional game. These games are going to be tough. Seattle came in kind of flying high. We know the kind of season that Darnold is having. But, the issue now for Darnold is you have to wonder when he
Yep.
gets into these big games, he has not come up big.
Yep.
And it started last year after his great season almost all the way through there with Minnesota, and then it fell apart at the end. And this year, again, he's had his moments where he's playing about as well as anybody, but then you get into a big divisional matchup and to come up small and throw four
Yeah.
interceptions. I mean that just wasn't getting it done. You do credit the Rams side of things because their defense was flying around making plays. I
Yeah.
mean, they just look like a young, hungry group right now. And I think, what you said is true that this was a game where their offense wasn't lighting it up and their defense won the game. And they've had other games where their defense maybe is not at playing at an A level, but their offense will win. And that's the sign of a good team that, one of the units is clicking at any given time. They're good enough to beat anybody. I think
Yeah.
they've shown that now. Clearly, these are two very good teams who are going to be playoff bound, but like you said, it was a gutsy performance from your team.
Brian, all thing is fair in division rivalries, and people, they banter online, right? And I've seen a lot of Seattle fans being a little salty, haters. Oh, you guys are lucky you win. Maybe that's so, but let's lay out a few facts just to play devil's advocate here. The Rams have kind of owned the Seahawks in recent years, no matter if it's Geno Smith or Darnold. Even when the Seahawks have been a better team, even dating back to the Russell Wilson days, when the Rams were atrocious, they kind of owned Seattle. They had even the Legion of Boom. They kind of had their number. They would split with them in a season where they should be blown out in both games. So I think that's a factor. I think it's a small sample size, but I think it's warranted in saying that now in 3 games of Chris Shula leading this defense, of course, the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, against Sam Darnold, 2 games with the Vikings, 1 game now with the Seahawks, he's kind of found a little bit of a recipe, Bri. He played him in the regular season last year. The Rams messed him up, held him at the end of the game. One kind of a game that they were not favored in, that they weren't looking great. That was the game that Christian Darrisaw for the Vikings went down, their great left tackle, and they kind of teed off. Then we know what happened in the game that was displaced because of the LA Fires that they played in Glendale. The Rams sacked Darnold 9 times. And in this game, they don't get to him a single time, but they pressured him. They got him off his spot. They got kind of the pocket around his feet muddy, made him uncomfortable, to the point on that 4th pick, Bri, he's throwing this uncharacteristic jump pass across his body, and he's throwing it right to one of our defensive backs. I think that is an element that you could see Chris Shula, because he seems like he's kind of solved something a little bit with Darnold. Cam Kitchens has played his best against the Seattle Seahawks, and there is something here. I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle, when they play them in a few weeks, beats the Rams up in Seattle. That's not going to shock me. You guys know, if you've been listening to this podcast, that I think the Seahawks are an excellent team. I picked them to win this division. I have a lot of respect for what the Seattle Seahawks do, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. We see what JSN is doing, lighting up the league right now. We understand all of those parts. But I do think there is something to think about, as you pointed to. Darnold in these big games, week 1 at home against the 49ers, they get banged up in that game. He can't pull it out. Brock Purdy pulls it out of the fire, throws a, kind of a no-look pass in the end zone. They lose that game. The huge game when the Bucs were riding high, that great shootout, back and forth, Darnold throws the pick there in the 4th quarter to set the Bucs up for the game-winning field goal. And now you have this game where he throws 4 interceptions, and he just looked uncomfortable all day long. There is something to be said by that, and I don't think it's being a hater or thinking this team isn't good. It's just, you have to wonder, all right, Darnold is not Jets Darnold, but is he a guy that's going to win in January and February? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair to say. And we know with the Jets, like he flashed potential at times, but the team was just so bad. And he's just gotten leaps and bounds better,
For sure.
as in his other stops throughout the league. But, is he at that level where he can carry a team to win big games? I don't think he's proven that yet. And even though they've got the number one receiver, and by the way, JSN just broke Seattle's single season record
In
for
11
receiving
games.
yardage, broke the record. Really amazing. Broke the record that was previously set by Metcalf. So, I mean, he's just been unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have to prove that in big games he can get it done. And, to this point, he's come up short when the spotlight has been at the brightest.
Yeah, of course, it was a huge game for both teams. The first place on the line right now. The Rams not only went into first place with that win. We'll talk about the last week here that they played against the Bucks in a few minutes. They're looking pretty good right now. And the Seattle, they win against the Titans the following week. They're by no means out of it. They still have a great chance to win this division, and they're a hell of a team. I just think there is some questions to wonder. And hey, we'll see. I have nothing against Sam Darnold, unless he's playing my team. We'll see if he can live up to some of the bigger moments of the season. Brian, the other game I wanted to focus on in week number 11 before we jump to last week of week number 12 was another huge divisional game, really that kind of sets the tone for who is going to be the division champion in the AFC West. I'm, of course, talking about the Broncos defeating the Kansas City Chiefs 22-19, game-winning field goal at the end of the game drilled by Will Lutz. Of course, longtime New Orleans Saint that was on Sean Payton's old teams. And, Bri, there's a lot of things we could talk about here. The Broncos played this game without Patrick Surtain, obviously the reigning defensive player of the year. They had some injuries. Everybody has injuries. We get that. But this Broncos team that I think me and you have kind of been on record that, yeah, they're good, but, man, this offense, I mean, you saw up close over in London. This offense this year against the Jets, against these other teams, has left a lot to be desired. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
Bri, in this particular game, we're not saying overall, but in this particular game, Bo Nix was better than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes made a crucial pick that he's made several crucial interceptions this season. And Bo Nix, in the moments when he needed to convert on 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 15, he found ways to move the sticks while Patrick Mahomes on the other side was going 3 and out and 3 and out and punting it over and over. When the game was tied, when the Chiefs had a chance to take the lead, he could not do what he normally did. Bo Nix instead was the man that was clutch on that day. What is your takeaway, Bri, with now the Broncos kind of having a stranglehold, at least against the Chiefs, over the AFC West potential crown? What was your takeaway from this game?
Yeah, you're talking about like a 4 game lead now. I mean, not what anybody would have had in mind. For the Chiefs were in danger of dropping under 500 if they lost their last game. We know they rallied to win. The Broncos are one of those teams where, like, I look at the record and it's like a lot better than I feel like they are. Like they're
Yeah.
sitting there at 9-2. It's like, do we believe the Broncos
Yeah,
are
it's like,
really that good?
yeah.
I mean, the Jags are another team where it's like I feel like they've been okay. You look up and they're 7-4. So I feel like
Yeah.
there's a few teams that are kind of in that camp. But yeah, I mean Denver has had this ability where, their offense can be not so good for like 3 quarters and then they just come to life. I mean, look at that game against the Giants where they were down double digits and just exploded in that fourth quarter. So like the overall numbers for Bo Nix don't really look so bad, even though when you watch him like down in and down out this year, it feels like he hasn't really played all that well. But
Yeah.
then he can have like 3 or 4 touchdowns in a short amount of time and make the numbers look a lot better. But this Bronco team, I mean, we know, their identity comes down to their defense for sure, and obviously it helps when they have all their components fully healthy, and Sertan is at the top of that list. But they can get after the quarterback with the best of them. I just would like to see some more consistency from Bo Nix, not just have to wait to pull these games out of the
I
fire
agree.
late. I mean, I think this team is obviously good. I don't know that I feel like they're as good as their record shows, but when they start showing that they can win games like this against the Chiefs, where they've had a world of trouble, as we know, in the Patrick Mahomes era, that leads you to believe that maybe this Bronco team is a little different and maybe they are more of a threat in the AFC than they've been in recent years.
Yeah, I think coming into this game, I believe the Chiefs and under Patrick Mahomes starting had only lost one time to the Denver Broncos. So I'm not going to say here and be ridiculous and hyperbolic and be like, oh, this is a changing of the guard. It's over. No, but in this particular game, Bo Nix outplayed Patrick Mahomes, who's kind of looked, he kind of had a moment when Rashid Rice came back after that Giants game and, oh, is this kind of MVP moments? And he's kind of come back down to his mean, where he's played solid, but not what we're expecting of the player that he once was in his two MVP seasons. We'll talk more about him in a few minutes. But for the Broncos, they're going to be led by their defense. They're going to get Surtain back. We know J.K. Dobbins is pretty much out for the year, so this game, it's going to be led by like R.J. Harvey and McLaughlin. Seems like he's going to get a little bit of a run, according to Sean Payton. But can you rely on your Marvin Mimses and your Franklins? And we know Sutton's a solid player, but is he like, an all-pro world number one wide receiver? I don't think at this point. So they're going to depend on scheme. They're going to depend on Sean Payton earning his money, putting Bo Nix in the right situations, moving the pocket, getting him on the run where he seems to throw the ball really well, and getting his timing down. And then it's going to be the defense on the other side of the ball. But I have to say, Brian, I was impressed with their kind of moxie in this game of hanging in there. Sean Payton talking trash at halftime when the score is 6-6. I really like that stuff. I think he gives them an edge. A little bit of arrogance at times, but an edge. And I think right now they have a definitive stranglehold over the AFC West. Well, Bri, let's jump to week number 12. Of course, the current week that just passed. A lot of games that you could pick here. But I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. Of course, as you know, if you've been listening a long time or watching a long time, we greatly appreciate you. We do try to mix up some of the teams a little bit and try not to be like network TV that talks about the same three teams every single week. I want to go, in that spirit, I want to go to Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers defeat the Minnesota Vikings 23-6. And, Bri, this game, I want to talk about it for two reasons, because I want to talk about these teams for two very different reasons and one similar reason. The one similar reason is I want to talk about both of these teams' quarterbacks and kind of what's going on here. And I want to start in Minnesota, and I kind of want to get a back and forth, a little bit of a thing to you. I think we're going to be on the same page here. I mean, how are you feeling right now about J.J. McCarthy? I mean, we're talking about a guy in his second year, which is basically his rookie year because he missed all of last year, got hurt in the preseason, a knee injury that at first it seemed like with his meniscus he would be able to come back, but he was out the entire year. Have no idea what's going on with that. Then he comes back this year. It's a little rocky. He wins a miracle game against the Bears. Oh, maybe this kid has something. Boom, he's out. Ankle injury over a month. Carson Wentz puts his life on the line. He gets completely annihilated, his body. And then he's put back in. And let's just not mince words, Bri. I know they beat the Lions a few weeks ago. That game was really weird. The Lions have been an interesting story in their own right. But McCarthy has been downright bad. And if you don't believe Brian and what I assume Brian is going to say, look at the body language and some of the words coming out of one of the most, I feel like, loyal and stoic guys who's been through thick and thin in the league. Justin Jefferson. There is some rumblings going on, Bri, and you can see the frustration mounting. You could see it and hear it in some of the comments he's having after the game. There's 100% a disconnect going on right now in Minnesota. And we talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again, Bri. I think Minnesota 1,000% regrets letting Sam Darnold go. And every single week that McCarthy is throwing passes to the other team, I think that only grows in Minnesota. What's your kind of feelings on him as a quarterback so far this season? And what's the direction of the Vikings, I guess, for the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, you know that I often am high on this team, but I have to say I've canceled my order for my Vikings jersey. I don't want it anymore. Canceled. But anyway, it's been a bit of a slog here. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, right now he doesn't look like an NFL quarterback.
Not at all.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just it's not clicking right now. I mean, you look at the numbers in this particular game are numbers that you would see from Justin Fields when he was quarterbacking the Jets.
Exactly.
We're talking about under 100 yards passing with multiple turnovers. It's just not good. And I get it. The Packers have a good defense led by Micah Parsons, one of the fiercest pass rushers in the game. It's just not cutting it. He's had too many lackluster games, and it's not as though he's playing in this offense where it's like he doesn't have talent around him. He's got arguably the best receiver. He's got talented running backs. He's got a good tight end. Like they put him in a position to have
He's got Kevin
success and a
O'Connell.
great play caller. Kevin O'Connell too, exactly. So you look at this team, and it's exactly the quarterback that is holding them back.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm very concerned with where they're at right now because what do you do? I mean, do you admit your mistake after one season of watching him play? It just doesn't look like he's going to be any kind of an answer there. And they have a team that, like I said, has the pieces in place on both sides of the ball where they should be, a high level team, but getting this kind of quarterback play is leaving them in a very difficult spot. So, yeah, they were just completely stifled in this game by the Green Bay defense. Quarterback doing them no favors. Jefferson's frustration clearly mounting. I mean, he hasn't had the kind of season that we expect from him because quarterback can't get him the ball, and it adds up to a lot of issues with this team right now.
Yeah, Brian, he's JJ McCarthy is a guy that is well documented on this podcast. I was not a huge fan of coming out of the draft. Nothing against him personally, just as a player. We're talking about a guy that was barely asked to really lift the heavy load in the passing game when he was at Michigan, when he won a national championship. One of the youngest players coming into the draft when he was drafted, and I just wondered, leading a billion-dollar franchise, being a professional, doing all that stuff, I don't think it's up to, he's a bad guy, he doesn't want it enough. I just wondered if he had the talent enough to handle a situation like this, especially when you let a guy walk out the door, regardless of what we just said about Darnold in big games. At the end of the day, Darnold is an NFL quarterback. He's a pretty above-average, damn good quarterback. He threw 35 touchdowns en route to a 14-3 record last year. You don't just replicate that overnight, especially with a second-year player who's really playing his first season coming off a major injury and then gets injured again 2 weeks into his second season. He's a new father this year. He's had that going on. Then he's had the whole thing that he's getting made fun of where he's out there, kind of laying claim to 9, calling himself by his number that as his nickname. I don't think you should be making these proclamations, securing trademarks to things when you've done nothing in this league. And there's a lot of questions of you as a player, as a leader of a team. And it's not for lack of trying. It's for more, do you have the talent to lead a team that is veteran, that has weapons, as you documented, who's ready right now? They won 14 games last year. This team is not built to, let's go through the bumps of this young quarterback. They want to win right now, and you're seeing what the other 3 teams in their division are doing. It's got to be incredibly frustrating. I think Kevin O'Connell's frustrating, and I think that's kind of mounting, and it is growing. There's a lot there, and I think we're going to see this bubble over in the offseason, Brian, where, yes, Kevin O'Connell is not doing him a ton of favors. He could run the ball a little bit more in Minnesota. But I'm not going to be surprised, Bri, if I look up in the offseason, if this really ends poorly as it is going, or this is kind of like a Josh Rosen thing, where they pull the plug, and that's it. And they cut bait, and they move on to a different quarterback, or they bring in a big-time veteran that ends up starting over him, and McCarthy becomes a backup because they can't cut him because of the dead cap hit. I wouldn't be shocked at that, Bri. I really think that is bubbling right now.
Yeah, well, even like when McCarthy was being drafted, the kind of consensus on him was he was kind of a game manager type, where he wasn't going to be this alpha kind of quarterback, but and you thought, in the right system like Minnesota with a good play caller and good players around him, that he had a chance to be successful, but whether it's between the ears right now or whatever it is, it's just not clicking. Whether it's just a lack of talent that he just isn't an NFL quarterback. I mean, It just the bottom line is that it's not good enough, and they're in too difficult of a division where they, need to have better quarterback play in order to compete. I mean, look at the step that the Bears have taken this year. The team that they just played, Green Bay, is a quality team, and the Lions, of course, we know what they're capable of. So it's going to be tough sledding going against those other three teams, with subpar quarterback play.
On the other side of it, Bry, we know the Packers defense is good. We know they're probably really good. We get that. They dominated this game. Totally agree with you on your points there about McCarthy and the offense for the Vikings. But I did tease at the top of this game that I also wanted to talk about Jordan Love. And I understand he won this game, but, Bry, this is something else to be talked about. I think he's infinitely more talented than McCarthy. I think he's a way better football player. But he's dealing with his injury to his non-throwing shoulder right now. It's clearly inhibiting him. When he was healthy, because he got banged up in that Giants game the week before, when he was healthy, his receivers have been going down left and right. Of course, they lost Tucker Kraft. Guys like Wicks and Watson and Golden and Dobbs have been in and out of the lineup, and when they're in, they're okay. We talked about this many times, that they have a lot of B players. Doesn't feel like there's an A player, and maybe Kraft was going to be that A player, and he was having a great season, and he goes down. It just feels like that this Green Bay offense leaves a lot on the bone. There's a lot here that they're not doing, and now if you're dealing with kind of an injured Jordan Love who wasn't playing at the kind of peak level that his contract should be at the pressure that this team is under, not only for Matt LaFleur and how many good players are on this team and how year after year, it kind of feels like, I think if you ask Green Bay fans, they're underachieving. They keep getting in as 7 seeds. That's not really what you're aiming to be in Titletown. Now, chance of missing the playoffs, they spend 2 first-round picks on Micah. Where are you at on the Packers and that offense right now? And is that seat for Matt LaFleur? I'm not calling for it. I'm just saying, is it getting a little warm? That's all I'm saying.
It might be getting a little bit warm. I mean, ultimately, I don't think his job is really in too much danger. He's won a lot of games. I mean, you talk about a consistent track record. It's been exactly that under LaFleur, and it's continued, even in the post-Rodgers era, even with Love being very up and down throughout his career. I mean, the highs are high, but the lows are pretty low. And I don't know that I look at this Packers team as one of the teams that I say is on the list of teams I believe can win the Super Bowl, which before the
Not right
season, I think, they might have been on that list. I think I picked them to win the NFC and get to the Super Bowl, and I don't know that I'm feeling too good about that prediction. Even with as good as their defense is, they're dealing with a lot of injuries on offense. Josh Jacobs' injury is a key one too, because we know their running game is a big part of what they do on offense, but not having that legitimate number one receiver, and even if Kraft was that guy at tight end now, with him being out of the lineup, they just don't have that one guy. I mean, Christian Watson's back, but
It's all right.
he's not a typical number one receiver, right? So I'm kind of, the Packers are in that long list of teams that I feel like
growing.
I don't know what to do with, right?
Yeah.
Like they're good some weeks and they're not some, and that kind of feels like it sums up the NFL right now, where you just have a lot of teams that might be a little better than mediocre, where they're like pretty good, but they're not at a Super Bowl level. And right now, how many teams do you look at and say they can win the Super Bowl? I think your team is on that list. At times, I thought Seattle
I still think
was
the
on
Eagles
that
are.
list. The Eagles, maybe. I mean, I don't even know that you put the Chiefs anymore. I don't know that you put the Bills anymore. So the
that'd be
list
tough.
is dwindling.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
tough. That could be a fun exercise that we'll do maybe in a few minutes. I like that idea. I think that could be a fun exercise of kind of Super Bowl teams, Super Bowl bubble teams. I think that could be a lot of fun. But for this game, getting back to the Packers, the Vikings, just to wrap that up, I do feel like that with the Packers. They feel very much to me the NFC's version of the Broncos, where I'm like, you know what? If you asked me, coin flip, do I think Jordan Love is more talented than Bo Nix? Yeah, of course. I think he has more upside of talent. But right now, they're kind of the same up and down player. They really are. Led
Yeah.
by really great defenses. And every single week are the Packers going to come out looking like they did, especially in that second half against the Steelers, or are they going to look like the Browns game? Or the Panthers game. You have no idea week to week what this offense is going to be. And Matt LaFleur, in the last year of his contract, that was the point that I wanted to make. Last year of his contract, he was not extended. He's kind of in that lame duck kind of area. I think there is reasons to believe if this season goes south, they miss the playoffs, we could be seeing Matt LaFleur not on the sidelines for the Packers. I do think that is a possibility, and I think every week that goes by, even in wins where they're like, against the Giants they're okay, against the Vikings, they didn't have to do a lot. I do think that seed is getting at least a little bit warm. Bri, I'm going to go against what I just said just for 2 seconds because there's a reason for it. We're going to go to the next game. We are going to talk about the Chiefs again, which I hate doing, but I'm sorry. We're going to talk about the Chiefs because it was such a huge game. Playing Indianapolis, of course, the Chiefs take down the Colts in overtime, 23-20. And Bri, for me, I'll just say off the top, and then I'll let you go. I agree, and we'll do that exercise in a few minutes, that I just don't – the Chiefs are one of these teams I have no idea what to make of. I know everybody, especially Chiefs fans, wants you to scream, championship pedigree, believe in them. Yeah, sure, but every season's different, and just when I watch them, they don't feel like, last year we had a lot of concerns. We're like, they're winning games. They ended up finishing 15-2, even though, they sat that last week of the year. They were really 15-1, and yeah, they won all these one-score games. They were something ridiculous, like 12-0 or 11-0 or something last year. Are they good? But at the end of the day, I think we knew that they had enough, and they go on that run to the Super Bowl. This year, Brad, they've just straight up lost games. They win this game here as their first close game of the year. I think they're now 1-4, 1-5 in one-score games this season. But they just haven't had that killer instinct. It started, I think, really in that Jags game, and it continues into games like this where, yeah, they win, but I come away from this game of another super ugly pick by Patrick Mahomes on his own 5-yard line. He was off in a lot of throws. Yes, he was clutch in the moments he had to be, particularly with his legs. But he threw a bad pass to Rashid Rice on, I think it was a 4th down, that Rashid made an excellent play to save that and convert it. That could have gone bad. That was not a good ball. Noah Gray, he gets knocked out, literally concussed. That wasn't a great ball that was thrown up. He just has felt not himself even more so this year. And you have to give credit. Yeah, they won. Great job on a championship medal, if you want to call it that. But for me, Bri, it's more about the Colts. You're up 20-9. They had opportunities even before that. You're up 11 points in the fourth quarter, and Daniel Jones looked like that meme back when he was with the Giants where his eyes are going everywhere. He looked like deer in headlights. I think he had 17 or 18 yards in the fourth quarter overtime as an offense. It's absolutely atrocious. It's unacceptable. And I kind of feel, Bri, for all the praise that we have and everybody else has given him, I think in the back of our minds, we were like, is Daniel Jones still in there, the one that we remember from New York? I think these last few weeks, Bri, he's starting to peek out from behind the curtain. What was your feelings of this game between the Chiefs and the Colts?
Yeah, I think there has been kind of some regression to the mean with the Colts. They were so hot there for a while, and were playing as well as anybody in the league, but there was kind of
They had the
always
greatest
the
offense in
feeling that
history. They had the greatest offense in history by the stats, which nobody
yeah,
believed.
right, right, and so there was kind of a feeling that regression was bound to come at some point, and I think we have seen that they've lost a couple games here recently. Their offensive production has cooled off considerably. They're not getting huge running production that they got with Jonathan Taylor earlier in the season. And in this particular game, with Daniel Jones, like you said, it was not a very strong performance. I mean, they hold him to under 200 yards passing. Their leading receiver was a guy who had one catch in Ashton Doolin.
Yeah.
So, they just didn't do enough. But on the other side, I'm kind of with you in the sense that the Chiefs don't feel like they strike the fear into the opposition, where that was something that it felt like they carried with them for several years, where when you took the field against them, it was just that fear factor
Yeah.
that the Chiefs had that, elevated them to a level above everybody else. And it feels like they're just a lot more vulnerable this year. Like when you watch them offensively, like there's a lot of passes that Mahomes throws where like he'll throw a ball deep downfield and it'll miss the receiver by like a good
Yeah,
margin,
it's
which is
bad.
something that
Yeah.
you really hardly see. He was just so on point for so long, and you just wonder, where the disconnect has been now these last couple of years, where their offense just is not nearly as efficient as we had come accustomed to watching it, and it has helped getting Rice back. I mean, he's been really good. Like clearly, he's been
Yeah, this
number
is his
one
first
weapon
good game
there,
back
and
in
he
a
had
while. Yeah.
140 yards. But yeah, I don't feel like they're at the level that they've been, even in the win in this game, and the fact that they had to come from behind. I mean, this felt like a game they had no business winning, down 20-9.
Yeah.
Offense felt like it was stuck in neutral. I give them credit for coming back and making the plays that they need to, but I didn't come away with it like, well, I'm really impressed that the Chiefs had this come from behind win. It feels like they're going to go on a run now. They've just been too inconsistent this season for me to believe. We know they're too far away, to win the division. So I don't, when you look at the Chiefs, it comes down to, are they Super Bowl caliber? And for me right now, they're short of that.
But I will give credit to this defense. Chris Jones had one of his throwback games where he's had a really rough season. He was dominant in this game. This defense played really well. And I know Randall is a viewer here. He often comments. He's a big Chiefs fan. And Randall, if I had to say anything to you, I would say there's hope, because even though they don't feel Super Bowl caliber, I think they are, Bri, because they're kind of lucky in this way that the AFC this year, it's kind of really a mess. And if there was any year for
Yeah.
the Chiefs not to be at their level that we're used to and still make a conference championship or a Super Bowl, it's this year. Because if we really break it down here just for a quick second, the Bills, pretty vulnerable right now. They don't look great. The Patriots, yeah, they're good, but they've had a super soft schedule. Are they for real? May has kind of not looked fantastic in the last couple of weeks. Does any of us at this moment trust the Colts, Texans, or Jags? No. The Ravens don't look that great if they win that division. And if it's the Steelers, nobody believes in them. And then you have the walking wounded in the LA Chargers and Bo Nix and the Broncos. I mean, that's the AFC
Yeah.
lineup right now. Like, it doesn't feel like this isn't peak Josh Allen, peak two-time MVP Lamar Jackson teams out there right now.
No.
So if there's any year for them to make noise in the playoffs and still kind of be subpar, this would be for the year. So that's the one caveat, the one hope I will give to the situation. It's just, that's why I come away from this game and I look more at the Colts, Brian, because before we move on, I just want to, here's the Colts' remaining games this season. Because remember, this is a team leading all of the league a couple weeks ago with the best record. They have now lost to the Chiefs. Overseas, they barely beat the Falcons in overtime, took a Jonathan Taylor almost 300-yard game. And the week before that got dominated by the Steelers. So there's been a trend going on here a little bit. Here's the next games, Bri. The Texans with that defense, we'll see what they're made of. The Jags, again, another division opponent. That defense has played well. The Seahawks in Seattle, the 49ers, the Jags, and then the Texans again. So we're going to really see what the Colts are made of these next 6 weeks. Right now, are the Colts for real, or are the Colts going to literally finish? They're 8-3 right now. Are they going to finish like 9-8 and literally win one game the rest of this stretch? Like, that is on the board, Bri. Like, that is the situation. Do you want to win this division? Well, the two teams you're playing twice that are right there competing for the division in the Jags and the Texans. Are you for real? Can you beat the Seahawks and the 49ers? Who knows? We'll see what happens. I have a lot of questions about them, and I'm very interested to see how the rest of the season plays out for them. Bri, before we move on to picks, just one final game I want to talk about because it may be the game of the weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles go down to the Dallas
Yeah.
Cowboys 24-21. Of course, this game is not only more important because it keeps the Cowboys' playoff hopes alive, makes that Thanksgiving game, as you alluded to earlier, that more interesting against the Chiefs with both of their wins. Imagine if both of them lost and they were going into this Thanksgiving game. Oh, Jesus. Both of them win, makes that game more interesting. But the Eagles, Bri, up 21-0 through about a quarter and a half. Look like one of those classic Eagle games about to run away with it. Maybe it be 45-20. And the Eagles did what the Eagles have done all season long. They play one half of football. That's what they do. They play one half of football. Whether it's the first half or the second half, they choose only to play one half, particularly offensively. And this defense, it's been really good, but it's going against kind of an explosive Cowboys offense that always plays better at home. We know Dak in his career has carved up division opponents at home. He's dominated the Eagles in their matchup. If you go look at his record, I'll look at that in a second. I picked the Cowboys to win this game, Bri, and I'm not surprised that they ended up coming out on top because this Eagles team, as A.J. Brown so eloquently tells us every week, there's something wrong. And are they the 2023 Eagles that collapse down the stretch? Or are they the noise-filled Eagles like they were last year, but they still won the Super Bowl? That is the question of the 2025 Eagles. Which one are you in these last two seasons? What was your takeaway of this game, Bri? Is it a Cowboys comeback and you think, hey, there's something to this team? Or is this more speak about the Eagles' struggles this season?
That is really a good question. I feel like a lot of times when you ask these questions, I'm like pretty definitive one side over the other. In this case, I feel like it's an even split. Like I don't know if I can give one the edge. I mean, I thought the Eagles were on their way to just demolishing them in this game. They're up 21-0, and they get an interception of Dak in the end zone in the second quarter. After
Yeah,
that
bad
play,
ball.
it felt like game over.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was very surprised at the result of this game. I thought Philly would win the game. I thought Philly is still the much better team, and I still think they are better than the
Me too.
Cowboys. But I give the Cowboys credit for coming back. I'm just baffled by the Philadelphia situation because and the thing I'm most baffled by is how we've gotten to the point that Saquon Barkley's production has
I
dropped
have
as
no idea.
dramatically as it has. I mean, it was reasonable to expect a drop off
For
from
sure.
last year. Like last year, he was unhuman. He
Yeah.
was just phenomenal. So, you could have saw a drop off in him still being very productive. He hasn't even been that productive this year.
He's been
And in
bad.
this game, he gets held to 22 yards. I mean, I think for the season, he's got to be under 4 yards per carry. Like he has just been a shell of what he was last year, and that's been the biggest factor in their offense. I mean, their passing game has had too many games where it just mysteriously disappears, which I can't figure out with how talented they are. The offensive line, the weapons that they have around Jalen Hurts, and yet that passing game just does not click. I mean, A.J. Brown goes into wherever he goes. I
I
mean,
know.
and he actually had a good game
He
here. He
did
went for over 100
early on.
yards. But I really feel like the Eagles, with how good their defense is this year, that if their offense it was maybe not as good as last year, but even say half as good as that, they would be the best team bar none in the NFL right now. But their offense is holding them back significantly, and it's just hard to figure, but in this game to have a 21-0 lead on the road and to make the mistakes that they did, the fumble on the kickoff return, which didn't end up costing them because the Cowboys went for it on fourth down, didn't
Right.
score. But then, they can't do anything on offense. They give the ball back to Dallas. They had one big pass play to Pickens, who had a huge game, and then Mr. Automatic Aubrey comes in for the winning field goal. It makes Thanksgiving a lot more interesting, but it just leaves you wondering, like, where is this Eagles team at right now? And that's something that we've asked a lot over the last couple of years, even with a Super Bowl win during that time. So it's hard to figure.
Yeah, and in a game too, you say Mr. Automatic, but Aubrey did miss a kick in this game, a rare kick.
Yeah.
That special teamer, I forget his name, but I saw a whole bunch of people talking about that. What a play! I don't know if you saw that. What a play by him. He's getting pushed all down the field, and he still sticks with the play and causes that fumble. That was an excellent play. You know, special teams coaches are showing that tape 1,000 times in every team across the league. But I looked it up for you, Bri. 3.7 yards a carry Barkley has this season. 3.7.
Yeah.
You look at 684 yards on 185 carries so far this season. I mean, he's just been a shell of himself. And I know you could say, oh, this offensive line, it's a little banged up. They lost Mekhi Becton. It's not enough to talk about this precipitative of a drop. Like, this is crazy. And sometimes it's them going away from the run. And sometimes it's just like he just doesn't have that short area quickness, that long stride explosiveness. Either one this year. And it is evident, it is visible, and it just this offense is just weird. Like, it always is weird because Jalen could have these good games, but then he could also have these 100-yard games. And then you have, like, two excellent receivers, all-pro receivers, that, like, sometimes they feed in one half, and then they don't feed. Like, they just... You go back to the Minnesota game a few weeks ago, they were excellent. The offense was insane, especially the passing game. This game, they're great early on. They're not good. They're terrible against the Rams in the first half. They're good in the second half. They're amazing against the Bucs in the first half. They literally have, I think, -8 yards passing in the second half. Like, nothing makes sense on this team. Even against the Lions a couple weeks ago, they didn't even play that well, and they win that game 16-9. They are an extremely weird team that I can't figure out, Bri. Is it an offensive coordinator Kevin Petullo situation? Is it a Nick Sirianni situation? Is this team just destined every year for us to talk about, what's wrong with the Eagles, but they win the Super Bowl? Like, I just don't know what to make of them. They're just one of the weirdest, if not the weirdest team of my life, and that's been counting the last few years. I just don't know. But they confuse me, but on the other side of it, Bri, I don't want to just focus on them before we go to the picks. A lot of credit to Brian Schottenheimer in this Dallas team. You know, I watched his locker room kind of speech that he had after. For the guys to stick together, for all kind of the hoopla and the week leading in with, that was self-inflicted between CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, allegedly getting drunk and going into casinos in Vegas and getting benched for a series and coming in, all of that alleged stuff. For all the stuff and the questions that had to be answered, guys showed up, especially Pickens. I mean, CD had some major drops. He's got to get that fixed this season. But they look pretty good offensively. Defense does. I'm not saying they're world beaters, but the defense with the trades they made with Williams and Logan Wilson and, like, they got Overshown back. They've looked better. There is something to this Dallas team. I don't know if they're a playoff team, Bri, but I think Brian Schottenheimer deserves a little bit of credit if this team finishes, I don't know, 8-8-1 or 9-7-1 or something like that. I think he deserves some credit.
I agree, and this was a team that was totally left for dead at the start of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody had any expectations, and it kind of feels like with the Cowboys when they're in that position where nobody believes in them, and you almost don't put them on the back burner, which they always are in the spotlight. That's when they come out and outdo the expectations, and that's been the case this year. I think Schottenheimer really has done a very good job. Offensively, this has been a very good team. Dak has had a very good year for all that he's been through. I mean, Dak is a heck of a quarterback.
He
really is.
He really is.
I'm,
He's a great leader,
I'm
too,
impressed
man.
watching him. Absolutely. And that defense, which was getting carved up left and right early in the season, I don't know that it's anything close to a good unit, but I give them credit for going out and making the additions that they did. Quinnen Williams from the Jets, getting Logan Wilson from Cincinnati. They're clearly better. I mean, they shut down the enigma that is the Eagles' offense for, 2.5 quarters after getting lit up early in the game. So, yeah, I think there is something to the Cowboys here. I mean, and it starts with the level that Dak is playing at. I mean, I think once it gets to a point where you talk about Dak at the MVP, you're always getting a little ahead of
A little
yourself.
over the
But
skis.
is he a good player? Absolutely. I mean, he has proven that he is absolutely a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. I think the addition of Pickens has been great for
Oh
that
yeah.
offense. I mean, he's really had a terrific year. Ferguson is having a Pro Bowl caliber year at tight end. I like what they've gotten out of Javonte Williams in
Yeah,
the
he's been
running
good.
game. So I think this offense is pretty complete and can score against anybody. I don't rule out the Cowboys making some noise before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a possibility. They're fighting an uphill battle. It's going to come this week here, starting in against the Chiefs at home on Thanksgiving. But I kind of like what I see. They're interesting. They at least
Yeah.
better than what they were last year. So at least that's something to say. Right. Before we end this episode here, because I think we're gonna do a separate video here for our picks, just because it's Thanksgiving week. This is running a little bit long. We want to give a little bit of focus in a separate video, so don't worry with that. But Bri, focusing on a little game that kind of you made me think of here. Let's go over a Super Bowl bubble here real quick before we get out of here. Right now, in your mind, I'll let you go first. Who is the teams that you think in your mind can win the Super Bowl right now? And who are the teams just on the outside of the bubble where they have a chance, but they're not your favorites in your mind right now? Who are those teams for you?
Yeah, that's it's a good question. I don't think there's too many that are on the list where like I believe they are Super Bowl caliber, but I mean as I think I would have to start as I alluded to earlier, the Rams are on the list absolutely of teams that can win it. I mean, you talk about a team that's on, as the kids say, a heater right now. I mean, they are on that list the way Stafford is playing. I mean, I think it's 30 touchdowns and two
Yeah, knock
interceptions.
on wood.
What a phenomenal season. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. I think offensively, defensively, you're talking about a very complete football team right now. It's playing with a lot of confidence. I think the Rams are on the short list. I'm debating where I want to put Seattle because before they played the big bad Rams, I think they were on my list, but
Yeah.
then, they got cooled down in that game, and there's the questions are persisting here about Darnold in those big games. So I think they're going to be on the latter list that
Yeah.
you
Put them
brought up.
outside
That's
the bubble.
just outside,
Yeah.
yeah. And so even with all the questions as we dissected with the Chiefs, I think I'm going to have to put them on the list
Yep.
as a team that I do believe can win it for a couple reasons. One, as you laid out, the AFC very
It's a mess.
just a mess. Not a lot of quality there. And then, you have to point to the pedigree that they know how to win these games. They know how to win in January. They have a quarterback who's been through it time and time again. So even with their flaws, the leadership is just too good with the head coach and the quarterback. I still have to put them on the list. If I don't put them on the list, like who am I going to put on in the
It's
AFC?
true.
The Patriots are a team that while they've been impressive, I think they go on the list that's just outside
Yeah.
for me. Yeah, I like what they've been about this year. Drake May clearly in the MVP conversation. Their leap has been seismic this season. I don't think there's any question. But do I believe they're on the short list of teams to win the Super Bowl? I'm not there yet with them. Packers, I'm gonna put on that same level, not quite Super Bowl caliber. The Lions, I'm gonna put on the list of teams that I do think can win it, and I know they haven't been clicking the way they did last year, and they were 15-2, and their offense felt invincible. They've showed more warts this year, both sides of the ball, but in the end, I think Dan Campbell is too good. I still trust the players that they have on the offensive side of the ball mostly. I still put Detroit there. Um, as far as like other teams that are
That's
on my
really it.
list to win it, yeah, I'm not putting the Bills. I think
No.
they're on the outside. I'm certainly not putting the Ravens, even with their 5-game winning streak. We talked about the Patriots. Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up for me right now.
Yeah, I think for me it's pretty much similar. For right now in the NFC, for me it's three teams in the Super Bowl bubble. For me, it's the Rams, it is still the Seahawks, and it is the Eagles. I really think those are one of the three teams will be the representative of the NFC in the Super Bowl, barring some catastrophe of an injury to a quarterback or something like that, which goes notwithstanding. I just haven't liked, as we've talked about, what I've seen out of the Packers. I think the Lions have been a mess this year. Where are they? They're right now the 8th seed. They could still make the playoffs, but outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't like a lot of things going on there. And look, as a Rams fan, I know what Jared Goff looks like when he's playing outdoors in the cold in January. They're not going to have home games in the playoffs as it stands right now. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that. And the Bears, yeah, I'm happy for them, but like they've played an easy schedule. Are they really going to host the trophy or the NFC Championship trophy this year? Probably not. And the Bucks are all banged up. I'm not believing in the Panthers. So like you have a lot of these teams, and the Niners are just look. Brock Purdy has not played well, and I can't see Mac Jones if he comes back in leading them. And they've had too many injuries. Hats off to Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan. Though they might be a playoff team, but I can't see them winning 3 consecutive games to get to the Super Bowl. I just can't see it. And in the AFC, for me, it's very simple. To me, in my mind, as it stands right now, it's 2 teams. It is the Chiefs, just given the way that the landscape has gone, even though I don't think they've played that well this season. And I have seen a team that if I don't believe in the offense, but the defense is historic, I've seen those teams go to the Super Bowl. It's the Denver Broncos. I think those 2 teams where they are on pace to break the all-time sack record as a team right now, I think those 2 teams. The Chargers are too injured. I think that the Patriots are solid, but I think they're young / don't have enough talent to win consecutive games in the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl, beat some of these Titans. And even though the Bills are not that great, you're still facing in a 1-game single elimination a potential nuclear weapon in Josh Allen. Even if the Patriots scored 32 points, who's to say Josh Allen doesn't score 48? Like that, he might. I don't think the Bills have enough this year to get to the Super Bowl, but they could absolutely beat you in 1 game. So can Lamar if he could get healthier. So I think that, even though I don't believe in those teams as being in the Super Bowl bubble, I think they have absolutely the ability to kind of ruin New England's season, and then anyone in the AFC South. Come on. Like the Houston Texans defense is great. They're the best unit out of all of that. But that offense, I mean, honestly, it's looked better under Davis Mills. Like, let's just be real. Mm-hmm. So it just doesn't have enough. And the Colts, we talked about them at length this episode, and the Jags are a turnover machine, where Liam Cohen looks like he wants to pull his hair out every time Trevor Lawrence turns the ball over. So it just feels like it's a very weird year, Bri. It feels like there is no dominant teams, and it feels like a lot of mediocreness where we're used to the AFC being the premier conference almost in the last decade with all these young quarterbacks. I think far and away the NFC has been significantly better this year, and we'll just see if that plays out as it comes into February. But what do you think about that list?
I think you did a great job summing it up there, and I feel like I missed a couple teams when I went through it. I was just kind of scanning through it in my head, leaving out Denver, which I do think is a legitimate threat with their defense. But yeah, I think you laid it out well. And I do think Philadelphia probably still is on the list of teams that can win it. It's just been, as we talked about, just so hard to figure them out. But we know they've been through it last year. Their domination through the playoff and knocking at the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So, when they're at their best, it feels like they can do it again, but they got to overcome all their kind of things that they're going through. And, it's hard to know exactly what it is, but, like they're good enough. They have to show it. And, it hasn't consistently been there lately.
Yeah, the way I view them is if we give the benefit of the doubt to the Chiefs to be championship caliber, then we should give it to the champs. And as weird as they are, they know how to win football games. They just do. And they seem like they do the bare minimum to win a game. Oh, the other team's not scoring? All right, we'll not score. We'll just barely beat them. Oh, the other team puts up 35 points? Sure, we'll put up 36 points. Like, they're just that kind of team. They just do whatever it takes in that game to win, and they kind of relax outside of the other parts. But for me, they're still firmly in that Super Bowl bubble until I see otherwise. But guys, that's going to wrap up here. 1st and 10. We covered week number 11 and 12. We'll be back here real quick for some Thanksgiving picks and its own little special mini episode. We appreciate you guys, though, checking out. If you stayed this long, we always appreciate that. And comment down below. I love reading those. I know Brian does as well. Brian, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just happened to see a piece of news earlier that I thought was interesting enough in the category of that guy as still playing in the NFL at wide receiver named Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
He's still playing.
for the
He was
Bills.
with the Saints earlier this year, where you may not have paid any attention to him because he was on the Saints, and nobody's really tracking
Yeah,
them. But he's had a very interesting career that started in New Orleans with Drew Brees, where he was really good at times, and has bounced around to a whole slew
everywhere.
of different places. Was with Had a stop with your team where he was productive, the Patriots, and all over. Well, today we learned that he has signed with the Buffalo Bills, and I feel like could be a
That's
nice
something.
little weapon for. Yeah, I mean, a Bills team that has been kind of searching for weapons on the offensive side of the ball. We know that Dalton Kincaid has missed time. They don't have that clear number one receiver. It's been kind of a revolving door of guys that Josh Allen is looking to throw the ball to. I think Cooks can be a nice veteran addition there for Allen and give that offense a little spark that I think they're in need of. So a little interesting piece of news there.
No, that's a great pull, Brian, and I definitely agree with that, especially with Keon Coleman kind of seeming like he might be in the doghouse. Is he going to be cut in the offseason or traded? Doesn't seem great. 2 healthy scratches in back-to-back weeks and a lot of questions about his maturity. So I think that was a great point there. But guys, that's going to wrap us up. As I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends if you be so kind. And until we're back very quickly for a special Thanksgiving picks episode here, a little mini episode on the holiday week. Thanks for watching.